weakness of Superman?
Kryptonite.
Kryptonite, right. Good job. Superman is only vulnerable when kryptonite is around. If you want to defeat Superman, you need some kryptonite. You either put it in a staff, you put it in different things, you put it in your arm, or whatever it is, but you need kryptonite. I'd like to think each of us has sort of a kryptonite. Something that we are incredibly vulnerable to. Most likely we have multiple things that we are vulnerable to. But for me, it's a kind of a silly thing, but there's a combination of things that really just turn me into something different, that make me very weak. And that's when I'm hungry and when I'm shopping with Lily and my wife. And I don't know if this is a kryptonite for all husbands out there, but for me, I don't know what it is about it, but I turn into this whiny little punk, this little spoiled brat of a husband. And I change into something that I'd rather think I wasn't. I don't want to be this kind of person. I'm ashamed even today to admit this. But I don't think I'm alone in this. I hope and pray that I am not alone in this room. I hope you resonate with this, because today we see that when something was taken away, when the people of God were lacking something, they turned into something that they shouldn't have been. So let's explore this. Let's find out, as we think about this, where are you in your greatest need? What is your kryptonite? Let's pray. Gracious God, help us to see your truth through Jesus Christ, who is the truth. Amen. I'd like to recap a little bit through these Lenten passages. We're moving all over the place. And last week we saw in Genesis 12 that God is seeking a people to be on God's team. God is a coach, can't get on the court, has to work through us, through people, and we saw before in Genesis 3 how bad the world can get because of that, and then in Genesis 12 how God chooses a people because God wants to work through these people. Now let's catch up between Genesis and Exodus, what happens. Abram, we saw last week, was chosen to be the person through whom God would work, and through his family. Abram and Sarai could not have children. So there's a miracle of God through that, for him to have a child, and for that child to have a child. That's Jacob, who wrestles with God and is therefore called Israel. Israel/Jacob has 12 sons, the 12 tribes of Israel. Fast forward, Joseph is the most loved son, is sold into slavery because of jealousy of his brothers, goes down to Egypt. And so through Joseph's ministry in Egypt, they're saved from a great famine. His family comes down and lives with them in Egypt. Fast forward many, many years, the Egyptians look at these people that are not them, these Hebrew people that are living among us, that are very numerous. Why don't we use them as labor? And therefore, let's make them our slaves. 10 signs, plagues later, they leave Egypt, pursued by Pharaoh. They cross the Red Sea on dry land, but then the sea collapses on the chariots of Pharaoh, and they are redeemed. Now, the people of God have seen a lot. They have experienced a lot. They have experienced God's deliverance. And that brings us to this passage today. Verse 1 speaks about them journeying by stages. I kind of like this. From the wilderness of sin, that's just a place name. It's not sin as in doing bad things, but the whole congregation of the Israelites journeyed by stages as the Lord commanded. God is just sort of like, here's the first step. Let's journey a little bit here. Let me give you guys a bit of an experience and see how you deal with that experience. So, what's the first stage? The first stage was that they had water, but it was bitter. I don't know if you remember this story. They had water, but it was bitter. They complained. They grumbled against Moses, and so Moses cries out to God. God says, okay, throw this thing in the water, and it will become sweet. The water becomes sweet, and they could drink it. Then, that's the first stage. Let's see if you understand. When you're in need, don't just complain against Moses. Why don't you cry out to God next time? The next time they need, they say, why have you taken us out to the desert? We're so hungry, we don't have any food. And then that's the manna from heaven that comes down. And every day, it says, gather it just enough that you need for that day, except for the sixth day, get double the amount, because on the seventh day you're supposed to rest. And they can't even follow that command. They mess that up a bit. They go out on the seventh day and say, where's the manna? I told you. These simple commands. And now we see, finish stage 1, stage 2, now we have stage 3. Today they quarrel and grumble again because of water. These stages are filled with something they truly need. They need water. They need food. There's nothing wrong with wanting these things. What is wrong is just grumbling about it. Just muttering under your breath. Oh my goodness, Moses. And then getting angry and then getting a mob ready, right? Moses says, it's not just that they're quarreling, they're about to stone me, right? This is bad. This is mob mentality. Grumbling and murmuring gets pretty bad. When you start muttering under your breath negative things about someone, it isn't a good sign. Remember your need. You all need water. What you don't need is to be wanting water, to be thirsty along with grumbling and quarreling. I heard a story about 2 seminarians that were top of their class. They were amazing at Hebrew and Greek, and they were studying very hard, and they both wanted to be top of the class, and they both hated each other's guts. And apparently, there was so much conflict between these 2 guys, it was an issue on campus between these 2. And this famous pastor, famous speaker came in, and apparently the other professors didn't know what to do with these guys and said, do you mind sitting down with these 2 guys? Because it's just getting absurd that they are fighting about just about everything. They're really nasty to each other. We think they're great students and everything, but... So he sat down with these 2, talked to both of them, and then when he got finished talking with them, he said, okay, you guys just take a nap. Get to bed early. Stop studying so much. Eat something. And in a week or 2, all their problems were solved. They were so competitive, so driven, so wanting to please God, that they were just physically, their bodies were just not operating the way they ought to. And it was just a very, very simple fix. Sometimes we have to deal with the root issue before that root issue becomes something else. They're about to stone the leader that led them out into the promised land. Their source of deliverance was God through Moses. They're about to stone him. Their issue is thirst, not an issue of leadership, right? Don't let that root affect another area. I don't know if you guys like the Snickers commercials that they have. You know, sometimes when the Snickers commercial, I don't know which one was the first one, but it was so strange. It's like, one of them was Betty White playing football. Like all these young guys were playing football, and Betty White is in the midst of them. You're like, what is Betty White doing playing football with all these guys in the car? But then, you know, Betty White gets slammed, gets hit really hard on the ground, and they're complaining back and forth, and they said, just eat a Snickers. You're not you. You aren't you when you're hungry. Eat a Snickers, right? There's one starring Joe Pesci and Don Rickles, Liza Minnelli, right? You're kind of a diva when you're hungry or something. These things. You aren't you when you're hungry. If Moses had bottled the water at this well, I think his catchphrase would be, you aren't you when you're thirsty. They aren't who they are when they're thirsty, but they have a choice. In their thirst, they can turn towards God. I think this is what God is doing, these little steps. Here's step 1. I'm going to give you a little bit of a need. Let's see how you handle that. You didn't handle that. I'm trying to teach you. Come to me. Okay, you didn't get that. Step 2, manna. Again, you complained and you got angry. So, okay, step 3, God is journeying by stages, sometimes withholding the thing that we need. This is not a comfortable message. None of us want that, right? None of us want God to purposefully take away something. We don't want a God who makes a need in our life, and yet sometimes God does that just by the grace of God so that we might learn to depend on God and turn to God instead. They aren't who they are when they're thirsty, And look at how exaggerated they are. Are you trying to kill us, Moses? Are you trying to kill our children? And this is the great thing. You really know that the Israelites were shepherding people, had their flocks and stuff, because in the same breath as talking about their children, they talk about their animals, right? Are you trying to kill us? Are you trying to kill our children and our animals? Like, the animals are so important to them, almost like to the same level as their children. I love it. But I think we could answer the Israelites with a little bit of sarcasm. Why don't we answer them with the answer yes? Yes. God heard your cries in bondage. And yes, God sent Moses to deliver you. And yes, God performed sign after miraculous sign in Egypt. And yes, God delivered you through the Red Sea. And God gave you good water, sweet water to drink. And God rained down manna from heaven, all for the specific purpose of killing you now. That is ridiculous. That is a ridiculous assumption. This is going all the way back to the garden, right? The root of all sin and temptation is doubting the goodness of God. The serpent whispering, did God really say? Did God really deliver us so that God might kill us? When we doubt the goodness of God, it can come out in really unhealthy ways. We tend to take it out on someone. We scapegoat the tension in the community onto someone else. If we just didn't have so-and-so in this room, everything would be fine. If so-and-so weren't in this church or in my family or in my workplace, everything would just be great. And so they put it all on Moses. They're about to stone him. It is Moses versus a mob. My wife Lillian has a great memory. Scary, great memory sometimes. I don't. I tend to forget things. I forget stuff all the time. Nathan, my son, has inherited that same gift. He sometimes surprises us by all the things he can remember. Oh, you said this. Yeah, I did. I need to follow through on that. But no matter how well we remember, most of us have a short-term memory when it comes to God's actions in our life. Most of us have a short-term memory when it comes to remembering what God has done in our lives. We might get pumped up, we might get excited about what God has done in this past week, but very soon it's going to be a struggle. If you notice that when we do joys and concerns, joys are a little bit harder for us sometimes to express. Probably have shared this before. In my college ministry, once every semester, our half Caucasian, half Asian American fellowship would join with the African American fellowship. And we'd have a joint worship service together. And they would have a testimony time, because the black church is very, very good at testimonies. But when they were doing testimony time, they had all these testimonies, and they looked and they said, now we want someone from the other group to come up. And it was very hard for us, who aren't used to celebrating the goodness of God, to just come up and say even small things about remembering and expressing joy in what God has done. We need to be people who remember what God has done, remember what God has continued to do in our lives, what God will do. God delivered Israel. God continues to deliver, and God will deliver. God was and is and will be. God is Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. You may be in some serious stuff right now in your life. I don't know. It may be difficult. You might be in great need. You might be thirsting in your own personal desert, saying, God, why are you trying to kill me? But remember this, God will never abandon you. God is there, oftentimes teaching us to come to God, to depend on God. If I may be so bold, and maybe this is heresy, but God is like a Snickers bar. You aren't you when you're spiritually empty. You aren't who you are meant to be without God in your life. You aren't you without God. You aren't you when you doubt God. To be you, you as God intended, you in your fullness, you need God. The goodness of God in and through you is fundamental to who you are as a human. God loves you. To love is to will good in another. God wills good for you. God wills life for you. God has not delivered you to kill you. God has not chosen you to curse you. Our young couples fellowship is discussing how to raise children. And I was talking to Teresa a little bit about a chapter of the book that talked about how certain groups purposefully try to frustrate their children, to show them that there is resistance in life, to teach them how to deal with frustration. The other day, I was playing soccer with my boys down in our basement with some softballs, so they wouldn't break anything. And they were winning, but then I said, I'm going to test this out a little bit. I'm going to test a little bit of frustration. I would let them win, but for a time, I would win. I would be winning for a time. So I got, the score up. I started running the score up. I was 2 goals ahead of them. And there was a lot of frustration. I was trying to teach them, it's okay. The game is not over yet. The game is not over. Don't fall down on the ground and start crying. There's a game to be played. Get up and play it and see what happens. And they saw what happens, and I let up a little bit, and they ended up winning by 1 goal. I needed to keep it close, to keep that tension there. But sometimes God is probably saying, why are you on the floor crying and bawling? Get up. The game is not over yet. Keep playing. Keep trying. So Moses, as we see in this passage, he takes the elders and he lets the elders see the provision of God. Moses, it seems like, needs some backup, right? Instead of just scapegoating Moses, why don't we scapegoat all of the elders? The elders are going to see, and the elders are hopefully going to help the people, remind the people that God does provide. God continues to provide. God is not going to kill us. You aren't yourself without God. Remember that, and remember God's faithfulness to you. Never forget. Remind one another. This is why we need community. Oftentimes, when you're hurting, someone else can come alongside and help you. And remember as well, when you're not hurting, that you may remind others of the faithfulness of God. May we, as a group, marvel at God as God provides streams in our deserts. Let us pray. Gracious God, you have been for us from the beginning. Forgive us when we doubt your goodness to us. Remind us once again of your faithfulness to us. Give us water when we thirst. And may we give all glory to you and never forget your goodness. Amen.